Hey everybody, it's Tim, Horror Movie Yearbook. I haven't done one of these in 5 or 6 months, I think. So, welcome back if you are joining me again for the first time. It's a HMY plus is what I call them. It's basically just me sitting down and talk about some current things and also plugging what we've got coming up on the podcast, which right now, if you haven't checked out our episode of our summer series, it is out. It was on The Mummy's Ghosts. We are taking a look at a bunch of the Universal Monsters sequels. Frankenstein series, Frankenstein's Monster, Dracula, The Mummy, The Wolfman. And this week, we are going to be in the realm of Dracula. We're going to be talking about Dracula's daughter. Actually getting together to record that tonight. So check that out wherever you get your podcast. The first episode is up now, and I'm pretty proud of that first episode, and I think this Dracula's daughter episode is going to be really, really informative. And if you haven't seen these movies, they're tough to track down, but don't worry, we go through the plot of them. We try to make it easier for those that haven't, and entertaining for those that haven't as well, but we're trying to make it informative. And Willie hasn't seen, I think, any of the sequels beyond Creature from the Black Lagoon. I think he's seen those, and Bride of Frankenstein, I believe. So yeah, it's kind of an introduction for him as well, and I'm a big fan of the Universal Monster. So check it out. Dracula's Daughter is what we're recording tonight. Should be out tomorrow by the time you hear this. But I wanted to do a couple of current event things right now. I've got a review coming up. I do want to touch a little bit on last week's news coming out of Friday the 13th. But big movie this weekend for a lot of horror fans is 28 Years Later. I have to stop myself every time to remember if it's days, weeks, years, months. No, it's years. I want to do something real quick. The reviews were embargoed for, that used to be a warning sign for movies, but I feel like they've moved away from that. But it used to be like, the reviews aren't dropping until the day of. But it almost seems strategic now, and I'm curious about the reasoning behind that. If anybody knows, let me know. But the review embargo, I believe, lifted last night for 28 Years Later, and so they have started hitting. I'm going to check Rotten Tomatoes right now, and I'm gonna take a guess. I've not seen these, so this is the Tim Tomato Meter reveal for 28 Years Later. I am going to take a look. I'm going to click on Rotten Tomatoes right now. I'm going to guess myself. I'm going to say the critics' reviews are at 77%. I'm going to go, I think that might be a little bit on the lower side from what it's a horror movie, but it is a prestige horror movie, kind of. Danny Boyle, Alex Garland, they have been a little bit hit or miss when it comes to reviews. Some of their movies have been a little bit more divisive recently. I'm going to go with 77%. All right. I'm clicking on Rotten Tomatoes right now. Here we go. Tim's Tomato Meter review. I got to find it. Whoa. 93%. Already certified fresh, too. So we've got 104 reviews. Wow. All right. Now I'm very excited. Willie and I already have our tickets for this weekend, too. So we're going to go check it out in the theater. We're getting on the theater. We have not been to a theater together since... what's the walking movie that I'm like In a Violent Nature? Yes, the walking movie that I quite liked. So I'll read off the critics' consensus right now. 28 Years Later taps into contemporary anxieties with ferocious urgency of someone infected with a rage virus, delivering a haunting and visceral thrill ride that defies expectations. That is cool. Let's scroll through these critic reviews real quick. I'm going to try to find. I always like to scan for the horror critics if I can. That's Roger Ebert. 3.5 out of 4 from Robert Daniels over at RogerEbert.com. Not a horror. I know I lied there. But a top critic. Oh, they're really burying the horror reviewers as far as I can tell. Chris Evangelista is from Slash Film. He covers a lot of horror related. He says this blend of unflinching gore and real honest emotion is so unlike anything I'm used to seeing in a zombie movie, and it elevates 28 Years Later to heights I was not expecting at all. That's good. Matt Singer is another one. He gave it a 7 out of 10. He said he's with Screen Crush. He says a great zombie series refuses to die. That's it. Very non-spoilery there. Where's my where are my Bloody Disgusting, my Dread Central? I'm not finding anybody. All right, IO9, Jermaine Lucier. He's another nerd centric. 28 years later is never exactly scary, but it's constantly uncomfortable. You'll never jump out of your seat, but you'll be on the edge of it the entire time, and we think that's a whole lot more rewarding. There we go. Here we go. Matt Donato. I like Matt Donato's takes, even if they are a little wacky sometimes, but he's over with Daily Dead. He says 28 years later is an act of cinematic anarchy, a compliment and a criticism. Ooh, so he's a little more tempered in his review. He's got it as 3 out of 5. Man, all right, I'm going to find a rotten one. All right. Emmanuel Noisette from the Movie Blog said, 28 Years Later is a thrilling and edge-of-your-seat sequel that falls completely flat on its face by trying too much. This is the biggest heartbreak of the year. Still gives it a 5.5 out of 10, though. That's not too bad. I'm trying to even things out because, yeah, most of these are overwhelmingly pretty positive. Did Bloody Disgusting... I always like Meg Navarro over at Bloody Disgusting, too. I don't know. I don't see her. Oh, there she is. I'll do her Rotten Tomato poll quote here. She's got it 4 out of 5. This riveting blend of horror and heart reminds that death, horror's favorite equalizer, can be as beautiful as it can be cruel. All right. I've read enough. I was sold when they announced this. And weirdly enough, I don't know why, because I don't necessarily know if it needed a sequel, and I'm not sure it needs a second sequel. But I'm happy that the reviews are so good. I've been looking forward to this for a while. And yeah, the reviews have amped up my expectations a little bit. Because I didn't know what to expect. So, that's right. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through to see the last few movies Danny Boyle has released. And I forgot he did a second Trainspotting movie, which I never saw. And then he did the Beatles movie, Battle of the Sexes. That's the Billie Jean King movie, right? All right. He's been around the 80s, so this is on the higher end for him as well. So cool. That is all. I don't want to go too much further into reviews for the movie because, like I said, Willie and I are going to see it this weekend. I wanted to touch on the box office because I believe the second film is already. This is a planned trilogy. And I believe the second film is already shooting. I believe it's Nia DaCosta is shooting that one. So I've seen estimates around 30. I think Deadline had 34. The budget I've seen from, I think, 60 million to 75 million. I tend not to trust budgets released. But if we're in that range, yeah, 2.5. The general rule, and this is also something that's kind of hit or miss, is 2.5 times your budget to turn a profit. So if we're going 60, what's that? 150? Yeah, right? There's that public school math coming into play there, right? And we'll just say that. So we need to make that worldwide. Domestically, I've seen this one for its first weekend coming in around 30 million for the weekend. I think the pre-sales, this is from Deadline, the pre-sales show an indication that it's just above movies like Longlegs, Civil War, Evil Dead Rise. These all fell in the mid-20s on their opening weekend, so a $30 million $30 million opening weekend would be on the high end of those. It would probably fall closer to Nosferatu, which I think was around 20-something, 26, 27. Yeah, 26 million. And then A Quiet Place Day One. These are kind of similar movies, 32 million. So that's kind of the range I'm looking at as far as tracking. It's around 30 million. I've seen 50 million worldwide. That's kind of the more important number as far as recouping its budget. Now, the one thing I will say, though, too, and this is part of the reason why we are getting so many of these prequels, sequels, continuations, if you will, is there is some, I think, hidden value in rentals, selling these past movies to streaming services, people renting these movies to catch up, because people are going to be watching days and weeks in the lead up to the release of 28 Years Later. And that's a way that, kind of a hidden way that studios can kind of recoup the costs of this budget. And that's not always factored in to a lot of these the tracking and the box office analysis. So I did want to bring that up too, because that's out there and people are renting this. They can sell this to a streaming service so people can watch it. I think the first one is, I think it's on Pluto with ads. You also rent it. The second one I think Weeks is on Hulu, Disney Plus Hulu right now. So yeah, what I'm looking at, deadline 28 to 30 million. Elio is the other one. They're fighting for number 2. This and Elio. How to Train Your Dragon is in its second weekend. It's gonna win the weekend, but that's not really a big thing. This is looking 30 million would be a win for this. So I'll do an over under here myself. I was way off on Rotten Tomatoes, and I have to hand myself a loss from last year, because I didn't say horror was dead. I just thought we would be in for a downturn, but this summer has actually was Sinners and Final Destination, Bloodlines, and now if this hits around 30 million, this is a good summer for horror. So I was off, and I will have to eat the L. I don't know why I did that. Now I remembered. But I said we might. I didn't think we'd be in trouble, but maybe a little bit of a downturn. But I'm gonna say so. Over under set at 30 domestic, 50 worldwide. I'll take the over in both. I think they've done a good job marketing this. I think people forget this trailer was really popular when it came out. It's a fantastic trailer that's been, I feel like it's the only trailer for the movie that's been released. I don't think they needed to. Oh, I'm looking at trailer 2, so there must have been a second one. I was sold after the first one. So yeah, I'm going to take the over. I'm going to say it's going to fall somewhere I'll go 32 million and then 51 worldwide. So there you go. Little box office analysis. And yeah, so 28 years later, Willie and I are going to go check it out. We're very excited, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on the podcast at some point. Instant reaction, maybe? We'll see. I'll talk to Willie about it later tonight. So there you go. All right, the next thing that I wanted to discuss, and it's a review of a new TV show. I'll mostly talk about movies on the podcast, but it's a show called Revival. It debuted on the Syfy network, Syfy, last Thursday. I think it's in the Thursday 10 o'clock spot. And then it's going to be on Peacock this Friday. And I believe also they put this episode I'm going to talk about on YouTube for free as well. So it's weird that they're waiting to throw it on Peacock, but that's the release schedule moving forward, is on the network Thursday. The following Friday, it will be on Peacock. So, strange release schedule, but I understand. I guess I understand why they're doing it. I think it almost feels like they're trying to get people to watch it live on cable. I just think for shows like this, that strategy has passed, but who knows? It also, I have seen a little bit of buzz for this, so maybe it will work to drive people to at least watch it DVR on demand or on Peacock. But yeah, so this is Revival, and not based on the Stephen King book, which is one of my favorite King books, definitely one of my favorite modern King books. But this is based on an Image, the comic company Image comic. It ran for 47 issues. It ran between 2012 and 2017. So this is a zombie-ish book, and it would have been right smack dab, I think, in the middle of like that Walking Dead boom. When Walking Dead was at the peak of its powers around that time, I believe. I might be getting my timeline wrong. I don't know. I don't think so. This was written by Tim Seeley. Tim Seeley is probably best known for Hack Slash, a comic book that is about a woman who hunts down killers with the help of her big hulking slasher partner, Vlad. This was a book that I knew about when it came out in the 2000s, the aughts, and I always thought it looked really cool, but it was one that I read about on the internet, but my local comic store didn't have it, or I was never comfortable asking for it because it was a little bit risque for me at the time. But I never got around to reading it. I guess it was just, maybe I was a bit of a prude back then, but I didn't get around reading it until the COVID times a couple of years ago, and I enjoyed it. It's the kind of book though that I would have fallen in love with as a teenager. I don't know if it holds up great, and there are some dated elements, maybe a little bit misogynistic. I don't think there's any menace behind it, but also the slasher homage parody it's been done a lot, done to death. Although I would argue it hadn't been done that much at the time of its publication. I think if you approach it with some context, it's a blast. I had a lot of fun with it. I want to finish it. I read the first however many issues. A lot of it's standalone stuff, but I really I had a lot of fun with it in the right mindset. Basically, as in a teenage boy mindset is kind of what you have to put yourself in, or a teenage girl. I actually didn't know about this book Revival, the comic, until recently. I fell out of comics a little bit around the mid-10s. I didn't read them a ton. I was very poor. Even now, I'm more casual than I would like to be. Comics are a pricey hobby, and I might pick up the omnibus for this because it sounds Revival sounds a little bit more serious than Hack Slash. And I would say the show is similar. The plot of the book and the show is about the dead coming back to life, not really as zombies, but as regular people, or so we think. But it's about the small town in Wisconsin, dealing with having moved on from their loved ones who had passed in a lot of cases. And now these people are back in their lives, and it's about how both sides deal with that. And this is from an interview with Seeley. I think this is from Comic Book Resources, talking about the two philosophical questions that fueled the writing of the comic. He asked, what if there was a zombie story about undead who hungered for their old lives instead of flesh? And what if society were forced to confront and accommodate the reemergence of these revenants instead of collapsing? A lot of zombie movies, including the one I just talked about, are kind of about society collapsing, and this one is not. And I think that's a neat hook. The show. I watched the first episode last week, and I mentioned the release schedule. I'll get into it a little bit later too, and I'll just say up top, I like this. I think I am like overly positive maybe on sci-fi horror shows of the last modern ones. I don't know. I liked Surreal Estate. That's one I caught up on. And the third season was a little bit... The budget started to show. I liked the first season of Reginald the Vampire. And then that one, you could tell they got a second season and the budget got axed to just pennies. And I thought it really hurt the second season. But that was a cute... the first season was worth a watch. I think it's probably on like Tubi or Hulu. I would probably like Z Nation because I like Black Summer, which is a spinoff of Z Nation, but I do know those have very different tones. Anyway, I loved Wynonna Earp, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But I think this... Oh, you know what? Channel Zero was a sci-fi show, wasn't it? Yeah, I think that started out on Syfy, and then I believe the last season or two moved to Shudder. I don't know if Channel Zero is pretty special in my eyes. I don't know if it could reach the sites, but I would put it on the higher end of the list I just named. I think there's some potential here if it gets the time. So the showrunners on this are Luke Boyce, did a movie called Revealer, and Aaron B. Kuntz, who I mainly know. He's a producer, also a director. He directed a few segments in the Scare Package movies, which I saw the first one. I believe that's a Shudder exclusive, and I don't recall them being particularly memorable. They were sometimes those Shudder exclusive. A lot of them I really like, and then sometimes I've never like angry. I don't think after I've watched one, but there are some where I just go, yeah, I can see that's something they had to hit their quota of exclusives for the month. He's also a producer, though, as I mentioned. He produced a movie called Trim Season last year that is kind of like a stoner, dreamlike stoner witch horror movie. I really, really liked it. I believe it made my honor roll. I don't think it made my top 10, but when I looked at its IMDb before recording, it was at like a 4.5, so I seem to be in the minority. Trim Season fans, if you're out there, stay strong. We're in the right. It's not for everybody. The main draw for me, though, I think for Revival was Melanie Scrofano. She was the lead in Wynonna Earp. Her character in this is very similar to that character. She's very witty, sharp-tongued. She's, I would say, sexually assertive, maybe. She's a reluctant hero, much like Wynonna Earp. She's a bit of a drinker. She has to do a lot of the work in the first episode, and she handles it. And I think she's able to find a nice balance with those characteristics, but also handling some of the more serious stuff without ever getting dour. And that's a tightrope that I like being walked. I think, for example, I think like James Gunn has always been pretty good at that, balancing those two tones. I wouldn't compare. I wouldn't go. It's only been an episode. This way, I don't love reviewing episodes of TV. I tend to wait until a season is over. But I want to talk about this one a little bit. So far, it seems to be keeping similar themes as the book, themes about grief and moving on. It does very much. The whole first episode is about these people who have moved on from the people that have passed, and in some cases maybe they aren't upset about that, and it's about how you deal with them coming back. There is the system has actually, as they mentioned, it's actually, you can tell it's held a little bit. There is a potential. A lot of the stuff is stuff that could come down the road or could not come down on the road, but it is kind of, there is a potential like immigration angle they could work with integrating these different, I guess you would call them beings in this, into daily life, and how these two completely separate entities have to interact with each other. There's also an angle here, a lockdown, and coming out of, it felt very reminiscent of these. They are in a quarantine zone and they are having to re-enter a completely different society. The COVID lockdowns, I think there's a comment here that wouldn't have been really in the book because that was 2012, 2017. I'm kind of hoping the show kind of explores that more. I do think, and that's kind of one thing I took from this episode, is there is potential here. I do think there is more ground to kind of mine here, and I hope it does so. In the series, spoilers for the series, the comic series, I did read about it. They introduced the idea that the revivers, as they're called in the book, these zombie-like creatures, they're worth money, and they're a valuable commodity to medicine, the military, pharmaceuticals, cosmetics. And I think the first episode of this show, you can see the seeds being planted here, and I hope it gets to it before it gets canceled, basically is what I'm trying to say. I'm hoping we don't put that stuff to the back burner. I wish so I liked it. Like I said, I think it balances tone well. I like the performances, particularly the lead performances. I wish the horror elements were maybe a little bit more to the forefront, but what is there is pretty effective. I will say the last 5 to 10 minutes are pretty gnarly. There's some teeth ripping out. There's some decomposing bodies. All the good stuff is really saved for the last 5 to 10 minutes. But I do think that worked as a hook. And I think it nailed the ending. And yeah, there are also some fun in-jokes. Like there's a Seeley Road in there. There's some fun in-jokes for fans. And from what I gather, Tim Seeley is very happy with the current version. It's what he has wanted. And he's a guy who seems to be pretty particular with that, because Hackslash has been rumored to, I think we might be past that at this point, but I remember that thing was in development and never got off the ground as a TV show movie forever, obviously, since the 2000s. So yeah, he seems pretty happy with this. I am going to keep watching it. I will probably check back in at the end of the season. And it got off to a very slow start viewership-wise. CanceledSyfy.com had it. I believe this is a website that was started. Canceled Syfy, when science fiction shows would get canceled one season in. So they've had a lot of ground, a lot of work to do. But I think it's like 100,000 viewers and like a 0.02 in the 18 to 49. It's a very low live viewership on a Thursday night at 10 p.m. on basic cable in 2025, though. That is to be expected. I think the model of live viewership is different now than it certainly is now than it ever was. My guess is with the release schedule that they've had, they're trying to build up buzz. Maybe it will work better. I did read an article last week that I think streaming overtook both broadcast and cable combined for the first time last month. as far as viewership goes. Now, I'm curious about that because I don't know if they count like Hulu Live and YouTube TV, where they put that, or if they're just counting the shows. That might be it too, as far as minutes viewed. But I believe their hope is probably, let's see if we can get some buzz and whatever live viewership. It's the CW model from back in the day, which is whatever live viewership we can get is all gravy. But the hope is maybe we can sell this to a streaming service like Netflix down the road, like the whole season. Maybe if we get enough interest, and then maybe it'll find an audience there, and we can keep selling it and making it. So that's kind of how things are going. But you know what? I would suggest checking this out if you are a fan of zombie movies, zombie things in general. I thought this was a really cool first episode, and it's only like 40 minutes, so it's only 40 minutes of your time. It's free. I'm not even telling you, like, you can watch it on YouTube right now. So I would suggest checking it out, and then hopefully if you don't have Peacock or Syfy network, it'll hit whatever streaming service you do have down the line, the whole first season. So that's Revival on Syfy. All right, and then the last thing that I wanted to talk about here. Last Friday was Friday the 13th, so I'm a little late on this, so that's why I saved it towards the end. But I've got to get my thoughts out on the day, because it's the only Friday the 13th of the year. And we are getting new Friday the 13th. We're getting the Crystal Lake show, and then whatever Jason Un1ver3e decides to do randomly. All right, let's start. Let's start there with the Jason. Let's start in the Jason Un1ver3e, because we're just going to go through the day last week and the announcements. I'm going to pull up the bloody disgusting article on Jason Un1ver3e. NECA and Jason Un1ver3e join forces for upcoming collectibles. This is published by John Squires over at Bloody Disgusting. A multi-platform expansion of the Friday the 13th franchise from its original owners, the Jason Un1ver3e officially launched with a brand new Jason Un1ver3e redesign earlier this year, and that new version of Jason will soon be getting his own NECA toys. The team has taken to social media today to tease the upcoming collaboration with the Jason Un1ver3e, though we have no further details at this point. And then they have a quote from Greg Nicotero, FX legend. We strive to maintain Jason's original essence while continuing to move toward the future with a defined look and feel that takes Jason into his next chapter. All right, you get the gist of it. I'm not going to read the rest of this because it's a whole lot of nothing. It's basically they're going to be creating new toys with Friday the 13th, the Jason Un1ver3e branding and licensing, and the new design and the mask that is very controversial. I'll touch on that in a minute. At this point, this was the first thing they announced in the morning, and I think they had teased something the night before, both them and Brad Caleb Kane, who I will get to in a second, because he's not off the hook yet. But at this point, I was just like clouding the Jason Un1ver3e, and actually, I think I said somewhere, like I texted Willie, if I were the showrunner of Crystal Lake, he had teased an announcement the day before, and if I were the showrunner and the Jason Un1ver3e side of things, because there are two different sides, the Jason Un1ver3e side, which is the licensing aspect with Horror Inc. and all that, and then there's the Crystal Lake A24 series that's going to be on Peacock, and Brad Caleb Kane seems to be more in charge, or is in charge of that side of things. And I was sitting there going, if I were the showrunner for Crystal Lake and I actually had an announcement, and then they tee off with, hey, we're going to make some toys, no further details on what those toys will be, I would be super annoyed by that side of things, because the people thought like, oh, that's the only announcement, that's the big announcement. To be honest with you, the rest of them weren't. Well, one of them was pretty big. Honestly, I'm not a big toy guy. Apparently, there were some unfinished NECA toys in the Friday the 13th line. Some people were speculating maybe they'll finish those. And then some people were like, no, I hope not, because then they'll be using this Jason Un1ver3e redesign. That people don't like that mask. Anyway, I'll talk to Willie about this today. I have no further thoughts on this other than, yeah, it wouldn't be the worst thing if there were a little bit more details when they started announcing things. The next thing in the day, though, was probably, for me personally, was probably the most exciting announcement of the day, and that was the Halloween Horror Nights announcement. So I think both. I'm going to pull up the Hollywood Reporter article just to make sure I've got things clear. Horror fans will have no place to hide this fall when they enter Halloween Horror Nights' newly announced Friday the 13th house. Universal Studios Hollywood and Florida have revealed Jason Universe as the second maze for their 2025 event. I thought there was a Five Nights at Freddy's maze, but I am mistaken. An experience that will pay tribute to one of horror's most infamous terrors, Jason Voorhees, 45 years after the 1980 film spawned a 10-plus film franchise. For this original storyline, guests will go back to where the legend was born, Camp Crystal Lake, an experience what the parks have dubbed a vengeance tour of horrors. Taunted and stalked while navigating Jason's ramshackle cabin to a decaying main lodge in Erie Forest, campers and victims will find no refuge as they are flooded with killer moments from the masked murderer's bloody on-screen career. And I assume this is coming from Universal side of things, in association with Horror Inc., but I'm assuming Universal Studios typed up this press release or this story and sent it over to Hollywood Reporter because there's actual details in it. This is how you do things, Jason Universe. You at least give us something to go, oh, I wonder what killer moments are going to be there. And, ooh, man, you know what? Going through Jason's cabin as a haunted house sounds pretty cool. Not just, hey, here's some toys that we might be making. Once again, the other thing here is they did release, so they merch every haunted house at Horror Nights. They do a merchandise reveal inside the park, and I'm over on. So that was the Hollywood Reporter. This is Universal Parks news today, Friday the 13th. Jason Universe merchandise debuts at Universal Studios Florida for Halloween Horror Nights 34. And there's a T-shirt. There's a coffee mug. The T-shirt design is kind of like a red and black number. There's a smaller logo on the front and then a big red and black Jason logo on the back. Jason standing in front of the tree. Looks like he does have the Universe design. It's got Jason Universe at the bottom. A little loud for me. Also, I don't as of this point, I don't feel like supporting the Jason Universe. I'll wait and see. The coffee mug, though, I got a soft spot for coffee mugs, and I kind of like the coffee mug. It's a camp style mug. I might buy this. And then there's also there's a thing you can buy. What is it called? Like an acrylic. It's a window thing. You put it in your window. It's a frame, and so there's Walt Goggins, whatever his name is, the ghoul from Fallout. You buy one of these acrylic stickers, you put it on there, and now you can put Jason on there as well. Yeah, if you're into that, that's cool. It's a cool little collectible. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to be down around this time. I don't have tickets. I groaned. What I'm trying to say is I groaned when this was announced because now I go, I'm going to have to spend money on these tickets. I got to go. I think I'm going to have to go to this. I'm going to be down there around that time. And I was on the fence, and Fallout and the rumored Five Nights at Freddy's house were not selling me. This one kind of did. So... Oh, the other thing I wanted to say here, too, is I know the redesign is a little controversial, but it doesn't bother me when it comes to a haunted house because they do these theme park, exclusive style, and they're kind of extreme redesigns of the classic monsters. Like, Dracula's kind of like rad. He's not like skateboarding and stuff, but they're a little bit more, they remind me of what you would design a character for in the theme park. They're not like 90s, but they kind of are. So I don't have a problem with this, especially since it's telling a new story, apparently. So I have no problem with redesign being used in a haunted house. The last thing to touch on here is the Crystal Lake cast has started to round out. I'll talk to Willie a little bit more about legacy character Dorf. Sorry. A legacy character is doing a lot of work there. Cameron Scroggins, Devin Kessler, and newcomer... Oh, Bloody Disgusting again. This is Alex DiVincenzo. Excuse me. I don't know why his name made me cough. So this is Cameron Scroggins from Nashville, Devin Kessler from The Godfather of Harlem, which I think is a TV show with Forrest Whitaker. Nashville is the show about Nashville. It's a country music show that had Miss Taylor from Friday Night Lights. Gwendolyn Sundstrom, who does not have a credit. They have joined Crystal Lake as series regulars. Notably, Scroggins will play Dorf, the police officer played by Ron Milke in the original Friday the 13th. It's a pretty small role. Kessler will be playing Brianna Banks, and Sundstrom will play Grace. They joined previously announced Linda Cardellini, and as Mrs. Voorhees, and William Catlett as Levon Brooks in the expanded prequel series from A24 and Peacock. The 8-episode series, this was the new information. This was the most interesting, I think, information for me. The 8-episode series is set to be directed by Michael Lennox, who worked on Dairy Girls, which is a show that has a lot of acclaim. It's on Netflix. Celine Held and Logan George, who directed, I think they co-directed Caddo Lake, a movie that I liked quite a bit. That was a Max original, and it's kind of like a cool time warpy style. It's good. I believe it was no, I don't want to say that because I don't think it was. And then Quyen Tran, who did The Pit. She directed The Pit, a show that has been on my watch list for a while now, and I want to check it out. So I had not seen that there were directors announced, so that is very cool. Showrunner Brad Caleb Kane, and that's a good group of directors. That tells me that they're taking this seriously, and those are some pretty good credits. It's not just like, here is blank. I'm trying to be nice, but those people are good directors. What I'm saying. Showrunner Brad Caleb Kane referred to Scoggins as one of many legacy characters from the original film to appear in this series. So he's teased more updates on his Instagram, which you can follow. I'll say this about his first tease: I don't necessarily know if Dorf returning is that big of a... I don't think it needed to be teased a day in advance. I understand why he did it, because it was Friday the 13th. That one was a little bit of a letdown for me as well. I don't know what I expected, though. That's the thing, is like, I don't know what I expected because they haven't really begun shooting yet. They're just getting the cast in order, so there's not much they can tease. Looking back, I think I would have preferred if they were to somehow save the Linda Cardellini casting for Friday the 13th and said, like, here's your Mrs. Voorhees. Looking back, that would have been kind of a cool Friday the 13th reveal, but it is what it is. I do think it's kind of cool that they're bringing Dorf back, even if I think they are doing a little bit of pro wrestling hucksterism there with the legacy character bit. But yeah, that's it. The thoughts on the day as a whole, yeah, it was fine. I mean, there's only so much you can do, really. I thought the Horror Nights announcement was cool. There are some details about it as well. And you know what? The Crystal Lake news taken all together is pretty exciting, and I'm excited for it. But yeah, maybe didn't need the day before tease. But he says he's going to have some more announcements coming, and yeah, maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say he has something that he just couldn't announce now. Anyway, that's it for this week. Check out tomorrow. We're going to be releasing our Dracula's Daughter episode. I think it's going to be really good. I hope I'm right. Horror Movie Yearbook at gmail.com for any feedback. Patreon.com/MidwestPodNet for our bonus episodes. Yeah, I guess I haven't really talked about that in a while, but we're still doing Tiny Terrors. I'm hoping to get an honor roll up for my mid-year, and then maybe I'll start doing that again, but I definitely want to do a mid-year check-in because I've been watching quite a bit. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time for Dracula's Daughter.